secure. All right. So today for our first topic, we have a lot of things that we like to dive into. But our first topic tonight is the role of the family. The role the family plays in the upbringing of the children, the role the family plays in the upbringing of our young men. Now, we would like to zero in on the issue of fathers or the lack thereof. All right, so we have done our research and we have done interviews and written articles. And one of the things that came out in our interview was the lack of fathers and the lack of fathering. We realized that there's a difference between fathering and having a father. So you can have a father, but had never received any fathering, had never received any teaching, any guidance, no one to say to you, hey, do this, or there was no male figure there to, teach you the right way, direct your path, and so forth. So we are distinguishing the difference between father and fatherlessness. So this question is for our panelists out there. What is a father and what is the role of the father? We like to extend this question first to Garth Knight. Hello?
All right, you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we're hearing you now.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, your question was?
What is the role of the father? Who is a father, sir, and what is the role of the father?
As you rightly touched on, father or fathering is one thing, but being a father is another. Meaning, a father is one who takes on the responsibility of being the head of the household, takes on the responsibility of providing for his family, takes on the responsibility of setting an example to his children, both male and female, but in particular male, based on this discussion that we're having, and acts as a role model for his kids and other kids.
Yes. That's it, okay. And we'd like to also extend this question to Kavan Allen. Who do you think a father is and what is the role of the father?
Hi, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Yes, so the Hebrew in scripture use the word for father.
Just a second, Mr. Allen. We're not hearing you very loudly. If you could turn up your mic a bit.
Yes. Any better? Any better?
Yes, better now.
Okay, great. The Hebrew use the word for father as source. Father in the Hebrew means source, and so there's a great need for father to be the source of really what I call not just funding but affirmation and defining who I am, and not just for the male but for the female also, that we look to our fathers to be the defining factor of how I see life and my identity. Very important as a man with 3 daughters. My affirmation, my explanation, even my correction carry so much weight to my daughters without even trying. I want to also add to that the God identifies himself as a father. And I find that very interesting that that he would share that attribute or give that attribute to others, to men who would have children. And so it's an invitation for men to be like God in that way, to care, to look after, to take responsibility for. And so that is some of the ways I would define a father and his role.
Hearing you speak, I can say that fathering is so important, and it happens in so much areas apart from just the family. You can have uncles doing fathering, even in business. You can have a senior that teaches you the way of the business, and in some form or shape, it's a way of fathering, because Fathering is about guidance and shaping, teaching, helping your child to find the way. So I get where you're coming from. Renard, to you, who is a father? And what's the role that a father play?
I think we all know who. I think we all know who isn't a father. We often speak of deadbeat dads and persons who were just semen donors, so to speak. But when we speak of who is a father, we speak of someone who offers security, and not security in the sense of protection alone, but there's security itself. So when they speak to their child or any child out there, that child should feel good about themselves because some knowledge has been imparted, and that is, I think that's one of the main roles of fathering. So
Yeah.
the speaker before mentioned affirmations. So affirmation is another sense of security. So you let the child or children know that, listen, you are loved, you are important, you are necessary, and you don't only say it with words, and sometimes you don't say it with words at all, but you show it through actions. Like there are some fathers who might never say the words "I love you," but then they never let you feel insecure. They never feel like they never let you go hungry. They make sure that you are well protected, are well safe, and everything that you need for your upbringing. It's there. So I think those are one of the deeply rooted needs of what fathering is.
All right. All right. For me, I think my father played a very important role in the person I am today. Things and guiding us for reasons. My father's opinion means a lot to me. It's very important to me to hear what he thinks, like to do, to be able to go to him and say, "Hey, Daddy, this is what I want to do," or "This is what I want to do. What's your opinion? What do you think?" Give me some kind of direction. Even at my age, I still look for that, and I think in some way it makes me look for it in someone else as well. What still on you, Anderson? What do you think your father played a role in the person you are today?
I absolutely believe that the role in the person that I am today, um, where fathers play an important role, but sometimes they don't even know. Like they teach us how to love, like when they teach us how to love, and they teach the females how they're supposed to be loved. So daughters look on father how they treat their mothers and say, so this is how I am supposed to be treated. So they weigh everything against that. They weigh what their father did with their mother to say, if a guy is doing the bare minimum or not leveling up to this, then he doesn't love me. And the sons will see it and say, if I'm not doing this for someone that I claim that I love, then I don't love them. Um, my father, we we normally have our sit down talks and conversations. He'd ask me what I want to do, how I plan to go about it. So even if it's not a sense of uh, offering information and direction, he would sit down and have conversations to understand if I know where I want to go, why I want to do this, to understand my passions and my joy, and he'd be there to support regardless.
Yeah. As a father's role is guidance. So that's one of the things that we can put down. A father's role is guidance. So a young man or a young woman without a father, we can say that they're lacking in an area of guidance then.
Yeah, and because the home is so the home itself, and this is why they say that a village raised a child. I was fortunate to say the least that I had not only my biological father, but I had other mentors in different places to where my father probably didn't know something. I I could go to somebody else to seek information, and they'd be there to help and say, this is how you do this is how you go about it. So it's yes, or we go to our fathers first, but then and one thing, the father shouldn't be afraid to let a child yes or no that they don't know. So they shouldn't be insecure to say, I don't know about this, but they should be able to say, okay, I don't know about this, but I can tell you who does. I can call up someone and ask, or remember this person who I connected you to. Probably they are the best person to ask about this. So I think the mentoring, so to have other male figures apart from your father in your life is also a good thing, because as human beings, we don't know everything, and the world is vast and knowledge is vast. So when someone else knows something that you need, it's as long as it's safe to go and seek information. And
All right, so we'd like to throw out first for our guests. If you have any questions or you have a point, you can put it in the chat and we'll ask the panelists the questions for you. All right, so Mr. Garth Knight, do you think your father played a role in the person you are today?
You hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Good. Well, most definitely did. He did. My father was from the old school, so there were certain fundamental values that he held on to, and in turn transferred or taught me matters of being responsible. And you'll hear that term a lot, responsibility, taking responsibility for your action. That is what a man is, our father as well is. So issues of what is it my role is as a man, and without verbalizing it, he would show it in terms of sitting down with me, talking to me, taking me to work with him, um, taking me to the beach with him, taking me to the kitchen with him. So these are all things that he taught me. And to this day, it has held me in good stead. And for that, I am eternally grateful. He also taught me something about hard work, but also working smart and not taking people for granted. And that also has stayed with me. So yes, my father played a significant role in my outlook now and how I in turn deal with people.
All right, question. What about a young man who have not received this? There is no father figure. How would a young man like this go about learning these valuable life lessons?
This question is for?
Yes, still on you.
Oh, okay. Well, that's part of where this discussion that we're having this afternoon is titled Male Identity Crisis. All right. All right. So,
Yes.
and in part that's where some of these crises evolve, stem from, where the absence of a father and the absence of these values not being transmitted to these youngsters, and the absence of even not necessarily a biological father, but a father figure, an uncle, a big brother, something of the sort. So you find that where some of these issues that we are now encountering stem from. But to answer your question, where does he get it? If he's part of a community, for example, a church community, that could be of value and of use. Part of organization like, it's not as popular now, but growing up there were like Cub Scout, Boy Scout. These were areas where these kind of values were bestowed and helped to mold young men. Yep.
All right, thank you for that. There's a saying that says if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. I think it's the same as identity in some way. If you don't know who you are, you try like a puzzle piece. A puzzle piece has a certain place where it should fit. And it doesn't matter how much times you try to push it into a spot. If that's not how it's shaped to fit, it won't fit. So with identity, I think if you're not sure who you are, you can probably find yourself in places trying to, wonder about, should I be here or should I be here? So when the father comes in, I think that's very important for the child to have someone they can look up to. And yes, for the issue of no father figure, yes, I believe if you're a part of a church, or there's a community, or there's a family member you could look up to, it'd be very good for you to get advice from this person. Sometimes older people, they have experiences, and sometimes as young people, we don't want to listen because we feel like we know. But sometimes the older people have gone through experience and they're telling you from their experiences so that we can learn from them, and we can also learn from others' mistakes as well. All right, so I want to throw out this same question to Kavan Allen. As a counselor, I assume that you have seen a lot of young people and seen fatherlessness in young people. How do you approach a situation? What kind of solutions do you give these young people who have gone through this sense of fatherlessness and have gone through that feeling of rejection? Because when a father or a mother, anybody walks out and there's that feeling of rejection, that's the first thing they probably feel, rejection. Like, okay, dad doesn't want me or mommy doesn't want me. How do you go about this situation?
No, it's a very real thing. That you realize that the fatherlessness in Jamaica is really high, and that sense of rejection that a lot of young men and just children overall face all of that issue. And so one of the things I encourage our youth when I get to speak with them is, don't be afraid to find a mentor, to say, hey, I want to learn from you. I know it isn't unnatural, because the truth, the natural thing is that you have a parent, you have a father, you have somebody there.
Mm-hmm. Hello? Mr. Allen, we're not hearing anything.
To say, hey, pastor, teacher. My father died when I was 12, and it was my Spanish teacher who became a mentor for me. And I realize today we have a lot of young people that they want it, but they won't go after it because they feel some sort of way because of the rejection that they had. But you have to push through it, knowing that I need this, And I think that there is help to be gotten, but we shy away from it. And I don't blame our young people, because I understand it, but at the same time we have to realize that we need it. The next thing I would definitely say as a pastor is, again, God puts himself in the role of saying that he is a good father.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a scripture that literally says, when mother and father forsake you, the Lord will lift you up. The Lord will lift you up. And so that relationship with God as father, I recently wrote a book, The Father Wants Sons, Not Servants. And it's really about teaching us the type of relationship God desires to have with us as children and as our Heavenly Father. And so I think in that there's a level of acceptance that you can find to help dealing with that rejection, to help dealing with the fact that I'm feeling of abandonment, that there's God, creator of all, that stands with me and who is with me. And I think it is very vital for somebody who feels abandoned and rejected to have that connection with God, who is unchangeable and will not fail you. So these are some of the two main things I would encourage our young people. And I guess one of the things I try to do is to just be there for them. You would be amazed at the stories of real life situations with teenagers happening in this country. And so I try my best to physically be there, because the reality is some things cannot be taught in words. You know, I think everybody's a visual learner. I think everybody it's easier to mimic than to sit down and learn it. And I try to make myself available, and I encourage other men as much as you can and as much as physically possible. Make yourself available for our young people to help be that mentor, especially our young men, as they don't have an example of what a good father is. We are really, really high in fatherlessness in this country. And so
Yeah.
it's important others are able to stand in that gap.
All right, so we have a comment from a guest in our audience. Shane, we see your question. We'll come to you in a second. We'll come to you to give your view in a second. All right, so there's another point I want to throw out there, and this is a very touchy question. So, can a mother really play both roles, both mother and father roles?
I know I just went a little long-winded, and I want to take this one on only because I had an amazing mother. And I have an amazing mother, and my father passed when I was 12. My sister was 50, my brother was 9. And I realized that a good mother can only do so much. There was a point in my life that what I needed was a man. What I needed to transition to become a man. Uh, in fact, it caused me my mother to kind of butt heads sometimes, because she just could not fill that role to help me become a man. But one of the things she did and did well was point me to other men that she felt were commendable, shared the same values, shared the same principles. So while I think a mother can grow a good, decent boy and raise a good boy, I think at some point you need a man to help you transition to becoming a productive man. Yeah, so that's my views on that.
If I may chime in here, I would like to concur with Kavan. Right, I would like to agree with Kavan. Women and men play different roles, and we need to acknowledge that. And a woman brings something to the table, and a man brings something else to the table, and they try to complement each other, and also in doing so, complement the rearing of that child. So yes, a mother can do a wonderful job in helping to rear a child, but invariably there is a need for a male guidance, a male to relate to that other male. And I think it's a critical thing. And I think it's part of the problem that we see being manifest in our society, the absence of a father figure. Most of the households in Jamaica are headed by females. And as you can see, the level of crime that we have. And it's not an indictment on the mothers themselves, but it's just the reality of the absence of a father providing that critical guidance that a young boy needs. Thank you.
All right, so we're just going to touch on this topic just a little. We were speaking about the role of home. Still me, sorry if the name changed, my internet dropped, I'm on a different device. Role of the family. And we like to just touch on the topic of I've seen it in several situations where young children are, I don't know if it's technically considered verbal abuse, but statements like, your work is like your papa, your don'ts, and statements like that will be thrown out at the child. Now, when a child is constantly fed these negative thoughts and these negative things, they will believe it and take it onto themselves. So the question I would like to throw out, and I want to throw this out to Renard, is what can a child do? A child that has been fed this negativity all their life. You're workless, you're this, you're that, you're coming like your papa. How do they overcome that? Because we have a lot of young men that face that daily. How do you overcome that?
When you say child, what age do you speak of overcoming? Because um, even at a certain age, because you're still in the same household that is feeding this to you, it is even when you
Mm-hmm.
do find ways in which you can, okay, not listen to what my mother or my father says about who I am and all of these things, you go back to the same household. So is it that a person who has now left the household and now trying to rethink everything or relearn everything that they were told from the household, or somebody who still lives in the household who has to go back to there constantly?
Mm-hmm. Still lives in the household. I want to go with still live in a household.
So for someone who
Probably
still lives in the
in a sense, like a
household, it can be
teenager.
touchy because
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
yeah. So what I would recommend for a teenager to do while still living in this household is seek for, I think, where the pastor says, because we ourselves, because we're fed these lies, we need to go and seek somewhere where telling us that we're worthy and we are loved and we're beautiful. So, and
Mm-hmm.
I think the Bible has a wonderful way of telling us how much of a masterpiece we are. So my first advice would be to go to that, um, seek that information right there. So when you're being told this, you see something else, as we're visual learners. So seeing words telling us that you're beautiful, um, you're a masterpiece, you're loved, you're wonderful as you are, and then hearing something, you cannot combat it. So you need it's a constant feeding. So you are what you eat.
Mm.
So yes, they give
Yeah.
this to you, but then you yourself need to constantly feed yourself the good information. You need to have people around you. Be selective of your community as best as you can. We have people around you who doesn't also encourage these negative talks. So persons who are telling you that you're good at this, you're great at this, try this. So you have that encouragement of a group. You need people in your corner because the world is ugly. The world is ugly. There are people out there who sometimes they don't even know the damage of what they're doing or what they're saying, but they say it anyways because they were told this, they were fed this, so they're
Mm-hmm.
now feeding it to everybody else. So you have
Yeah.
to make a conscious decision to say, okay, I'm not going to eat what you're giving me. I'm going to find my own food, feed on that, and be sure to whatever I consume from others are what I would give to myself and I would give to others.
All right. Thank you for that point, Renard. Um, we would like to, firstly, I want to throw out friends for our young men that are on the panel. The friends that you choose and the people that you're constantly around is very important and can really help mold your life and mold your thoughts. So if you can find yourself around a mature group, older people for friends is okay. It's not weird, it's okay. So if you can find yourself in a nice group or you think you need guidance, that will be very good. All right, we are going to move on to our next topic now, and that would be our next presenter, Julissa Sterling.
Oh,
Good night, everyone. Can you all hear me
Good
clearly?
night.
Okay.
I'm hearing.
So before I move on to the next topic, I would Shane Brown posted a question in the chat. So Shane, you can unmute yourself and expound on your point that you had earlier.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night.
All right, so I was brought up by a single parent, my mother, and I agree that a father is absolutely, it's very important because it's the first role model for the child. the male role model for the child to be specific. And so, being that my father was absent, I would seek the to you say I would seek that role model elsewhere. So whether it be my brother or other young men, or men in the community that I look up to. Now, fortunately for me, there were respectable individuals, loving individuals that could show me what it's like to be a man or a male. And I would tie in also why it's important that you can have a very good mother, but there is a difference between being a young boy and your mother. You need to identify what it is to be a male. And so you would have to look outwards for that. I also raise the point that sometimes males, young boys, will get bad examples, but they won't know that they're bad examples. They will look up to them just the same because the mother look up to them, the aunt, the sister. A lot of people respect these individuals, and they don't know to identify that they are not good fathers. So I think the lack of fathers in Jamaica has caused a gap where when young men are looking for that excellent role model, they may find themselves getting the wrong information and then aspiring to be, towards the bad example.
Mm-hmm.
As for me, like I said, I was able to go to church because my mom is very a devoted Christian, and also my brother was very loving and kind and a confident young man. So I was able to get that guidance to receive that information. Thank you for allowing me to say my input.
We thank you for giving us your input. It gives us another viewpoint on mothers and the importance of mothers as well to the upbringing of the young man.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your input, Shane. We have another question in the chat from Mrs. Angela De Freitas, and she says, being a woman, I'm really curious to know what it means to become a man. How do you move from a boy to a man? So would any of the panelists like to take on this question?
No, I think that's an excellent question and something for us to examine. I think women and men, as I believe Garth said earlier, come from two different angles, play two completely different roles. And I think a woman is very nurturing and, you know, comes from an angle always of, I don't want to use the word, I trying to find a different word than saying trying to, a man toughens you up. But let me put it this way. I believe a man, when you become a man, you learn to take responsibility. You learn to uh, see yourself as someone in society who creates standards and creates uh, an example for where society should go and how it should be without necessarily having to be in a position of such great power. But that's just my role. I am here to be a problem solver and to create standards for what people can emulate. You look at society today and you see where a lot of our men aren't necessarily contributing positively to society, and you realize that the culture itself or the society itself, when that is happening, the standard has dropped. And I believe any society that have men that set high standards, it will trickle down into the children, trickle down in a greater way. And so when you don't have a man kind of showing you that, this is how you look at life and how you, once you see an issue, you go for it. Once you you're in a problem, you don't pass the buck off, you take responsibility. And once that isn't taught to you, you live in a matriarchal society sometimes, and you see a woman doing that, it sends a message. And this is what I was trying to say earlier, but couldn't communicate it. I say it like this: it sends the message that when I'm in an issue, mommy, fix it. I don't take responsibility because I don't see a man, and all I see all my life is my mother. And I see a lot of young men who are like that. We don't take responsibility for everything because everything, we mockingly and jokingly call him mama's boy. We pass everything off. Mommy do this, mommy do that. When you have a man around you that teach you, no, this is not something you take full responsibility for every action. You don't blame society for anything. You realize that you are the one who is to impact society. Um, you don't, you're not a complainer, you find answers and solutions. I think it's very important and cannot be understated. What we have today is a lot of men grown in homes with women, and that's fine. As I say, I am too. I trust me, brilliant mother, but I realize because a woman is so nurturing, and I just sharing just what happened with me. My mother would tell me, you have to wash your clothes, and if I don't wash it by a certain time, she go and wash it herself. When you're in a house with a man, and a man say, you're going to deal with this, and the teacher not to pass the buck up, but because a woman is so nurturing at time. Some women don't do it like that. So maybe you say, my mother would never, but there are in other ways. What a woman tends to do is just nurture and, a different way of doing it. A man is a little more take responsibility, stand on your word, do what you say. From a different angle, I really hope I'm making sense. And I think that is something that is lacking in our men today because we're not seeing a lot of men rise up to that challenge to help them see that as a goal.
That is very true. I can connect with what you're saying. That is very true. I'd like to put a statement out by a viewer. Shana K. Rankin says, can we also highlight that fathers' presence in their son's life can also cause a negative impact on their son's identity, especially in the culture of aspects of sexuality, heterosexuality at a tender age, and homophobia through life. So that's just a statement that was made by a guest. I don't know if the guest wants to elaborate. No? All right. So now, Jalissa.
Hi. Okay. So for our next topic, we'll be touching on toxic masculinity and the gallus mindset in the Jamaican society. So typically, a man is emphasized in the image of a bad man who is a strong and aggressive male that avoids anything that might be linked to femininity. To hold a tough image who is and someone who is also successful with women. So should men be identified by his actions, morals, and principles and beliefs, or should they be considered a man by the acceptance and the influence that they receive from the society? So we'll start with Mr. Garth Knight.
Okay, quite okay. That's quite a mouthful, but yes, if I can recall all of what you just said, should a man be accepted by what? The first one was what, my dear?
Actions, morals, and principles. Or
Right.
should he be accepted by the perception of the society and the society's influence?
Okay. Well, I guess the answer for that would be his principles, morals and principles. But we have to look at the fact that we don't live in a vacuum. We live in the world, and in terms of males and examples that are set, there is culture, and within culture there are certain norms, and we have subculture. In our context here in Jamaica, our subculture seem to have become almost our culture now. So certain values that I grew up with, for example, how a man should behave and how he should treat a woman, seem to be slowly, well, I said slowly, but I don't think it's slowly, being tossed aside. And that culture, that behavior is now part of the culture and is now accepted. Um, but to answer your question, no, he should be judged based on his morals, his values, and his principles, and not so much seeking acceptance of others. Thank you.
Okay, thank
And
you.
to add, I'd like when I noticed that when discussing the roles and responsibilities of man or what a masculine is, there's never the discussion of showing emotion. If there's any
Yeah.
emotion that should be shown, it's aggression. So I would like to divorce the thought, and like most men to encourage other men to express those emotion. I don't know where it came from to say that expressing emotion is weak, because it takes a whole lot of strength to give off what I was hearing a voice. So
Not sure what happened there, but you can continue.
okay. So what I'm saying is that mm, told and we're not even allowed most of the times to actually express ourselves. Because if it's a thing that both men and women express themselves the same. You have your child, and this is I guess this is one of the routine songs. It's seen by to express themselves the same. A girl we have their This is one of the things that have been kept of this man is supposed to express themselves. Songs, the men has all the girls are really seen as the forefront, and the persons who are quite laid back and want the one girl, they are less than of a masculine figure. And I think we need to that is the idea that we need to concern, because this is what people are seeing and this is what people are. So I think there is where we have a roadblock.
Bernard, are you still speaking? I see here where you're mute. We're not hearing you.
Okay, I'm not sure what's going on with Renard. Are you back?
Yeah,
I keep
he's back.
hearing voices.
Are you finished, Renard?
Yeah, I think my audio is playing catch up because I'm still hearing things that Garth said before. But I'm finished.
You're finished. All right.
Okay,
Julissa?
thank you, Renard. Okay, so question for Pastor Allen. What are your thoughts on hypermasculinity and the gallus mentality in the Jamaican society?
I want just to repeat that. You were a little low. Just repeat that again, please.
Can you hear me better?
Yes.
Yes, okay. What are your thoughts on hypermasculinity and the gallus mentality in the Jamaican society today?
No, listen. You, you know, and somebody in the chat had talked about that. Fathers can be present and be a bad example, right, and cause damage.
Yeah.
We have allowed culture to hijack some of the best qualities of what being a real man is. And I think when you look at a man who stands by his family, a man who gives his word to a woman, stands by his word, raises his children to do the same, meets his responsibility, that's a man that we look at and we say, listen, you are what is right about society. When you look at even the effects of a family unit where the man is present and stands with his children and you're almost 70% more likely to be end up in prison when you don't have your father, like 70% more likely. I want to think about that number. And what it shows us is that let me go back a little bit, because not because your father doesn't live with you. One second, I live with my children. Not because your father doesn't live with you don't necessarily mean that he isn't trying, but it becomes a little harder. So I just want to make that point. It becomes a little harder because you can't be there as much, and different circumstances cause that to happen. And so sometimes that falls into the statistics, because when they do some of these statistics, they look at children that literally live with their father. Don't necessarily mean your father is absent. I just wanted to put that in it. But however, when you have a man who is very present and in his child's life, you see the fruit of it. What culture is celebrating now and what culture is saying is the way to go and what culture is cheering on does not produce what the same society is saying we need to see. So we cheer on a man who goes around with many different women, have children all over the place, and just literally and physically cannot be there for in 6 different homes. It's just really hard to really be there as much as it. Even if your heart is there, it becomes very challenging, even if you have all the money in the world. And so we are celebrating that in our culture, yet we want to see children with fathers present. We want to see men take care of their children. We want to see men who stand and stick by their word. We want to see men that I'm so happy to see women kind of asking these questions and challenging us for answers. I appreciate that. And so our women want to know when they get into a relationship with a man, they can trust him at his word and stuff. So we have to look back at culture and say, what will produce exactly what we believe society should be, what the output should be. And so that's just one of my biggest issues with what's happening now. We are celebrating Gallus mentality. We are celebrating in our music, in our speech, you know, women celebrate it, men celebrate it, but yet we're asking for honest, truthful, present men for families. It makes no sense, and that is really where we want to challenge society to celebrate. It is amazing that you see a man with one woman and call him a board man. It's amazing, but yet say, where are the men that will be honest and take care of their family and stick by their women? It blows my mind. And so I feel like that is the problem. That is the issue, that we are celebrating things that won't give the output that we are asking for. And so we need to start to celebrate what actually creates the things that we know makes a better society, and demand it from our men in our music, in our culture, in every way. We need to demand it.
Just to piggyback on what Kavan just said, and I agree with him totally. And you see being manifest, as he said, in our music. So you go to these shows, and at the front of the, at least on the television, because I must admit, I didn't go to the shows, but on the front, it's all females. And these guys are talking about what they want to do with the woman and bend them over and whatnot. And it is being celebrated. So yes, I agree with you. And what we want out of society and what we want for our males, these young males, is not being had because we're not doing the things that we should be doing and teaching the values that we should be teaching.
Yeah.
Thank
You know, I know you jump off it, but it's just, I'm just very passionate about this one. Very, very passionate about this one. And you know, we need older men who have made certain mistakes to really be very vocal about it. We need our celebrities and people in the public figures to really get up and say, listen, when I was 16, when I was 18, when I was 22, this was wrong. We also need, and I know it's the same point, but I just want to just tie in it, practical advice. We also need to stop making excuses for our men based on their age. We cannot say it's okay. He's 19, man. Give him a blind, make him go on. You know, because this is lives at stake. And I'm telling you, as somebody who I am dealing with young people and adults whose lives are, you know, in such a mess because of certain decision at 17, 18, 19. This is one of the issues that we cannot make these excuses anymore. Jewish culture, and I'm not well, old Jewish culture, they do it somewhat, they still do it now, like Orthodox Jews. And I'm not saying this is perfect because they do have their issues as well. But something that I find interesting is that they commend their young men and their women too, but we're focusing on men as men from 13. So I expect you to act responsibly. I expect you to act in a certain decorum. I expect you to be productive in society at 13. And we are demanding it as a family. We are demanding it as a society. You are now a man. I don't expect, you know, you to act certain way. In today's culture, we take it, we celebrate it, and we say it's okay. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I believe if we are focused as young men, um, when I actually got married, I guess people think it's pretty young, at 22. And so when I look at somebody at 24, 25, who takes no responsibility for anything, it don't make sense to me. Who lives with, you know, you live with your family, but you are not adding any value. It breaks my heart because at 22, I wasn't even working a big job, but I was married. By 23, we had our first child, and the responsibilities were real, and I had to make real decisions. I had to put things in place to take care of not just my life, but the life of others. It is possible. It is possible. But we cannot get that if we don't challenge our men for it and say that we will accept nothing less. And I want to say that to our women too. You need to how is it that, and I'm so sorry because you guys touched this thing, as I said, I'm so passionate about it. How can we tell a man, say that we expect a man to cheat on us because as a woman, it's his expectation, you know, as long as I'm wife. These are some of the things that are causing men not to play the role. how can it that we take certain things, abuse, and I say we, but I know we get the point. How can a woman accept certain abuses and stuff as okay? No, we need to expect our men from an early age to act as men. And so I'm done with my monologue. So sorry.
I want to chip in
Thank
here.
you.
I want to
Wait.
chip in here.
You can go ahead.
Okay, because females expecting things from men is one thing, but on the male side, there needs to be a level of accountability. I don't. I, I've seen it a lot where a lot of men aren't accountable for the things that they do and they say. They feel that they can say anything or do anything because they won't be reprimanded. Their friends will cheer them on, or society already encourages it, so it's fine for them to do it. Men say and get away with a lot of things. So I think we need to one thing we really need to instill in young men coming up is accountability. Be careful of what you say, take responsibility for what you say and what you do, and ensure that these things aren't just willy nilly. You don't just come out and be like, oh, let me just say this and sit there and get a reaction, upset a few people because I know my friends will back me. Yeah, yeah, and I've seen a lot where women are saying we don't like these things, and then there are men coming on to argue to say, how can you not like this? What are we supposed to do? Can we not call you this? Can we not do this? And I guess they feel it's like that, a sense of entitlement where males are concerned. How can you tell me not to do something? And I think that is more than likely stemming from the homes where they have probably gotten a bulk of the things that they have. They have been pardoned for it, so they didn't really take responsibility. There's still a problem where most men aren't doing things in the house. So they still see women as, oh, the person who should be doing the housework and stuff. I've been cooking and doing stuff in my house since age 12, and it's not that I was asked to do it by my mother, but it was I because I was hungry. I felt the need to learn how to cook. So when my mother is at work and nobody's there, I can't sit down and wait for anybody to come home and feed me. So I think stuff like that should be instilled and imparted in young men coming up, that take responsibility and be accountable, and be sure to find persons who hold you accountable, persons with good morals who say this is wrong, you shouldn't be saying this, you shouldn't be doing this, I can't be your friend if this is the things that you're encouraging. So those things are also what's affecting males being the right place that they should be.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, we are running out of time for this discussion. So we'll move on to the last point. Okay, so presently with the okay, okay, so presently in our society, traditional good morals of men are being overshadowed by the celebrated cultures that we have today. What are your recommendations for young men to not succumb to the influences of the society and stay on their own path and step into their identity and the man that they are supposed to be? And we'll start with Mr. Garth.
Okay. Question again? Sorry, forgive me. What was the question?
With the overshadowing of the traditional good principles of a man by the culture that by the negative culture that we have adapted today, what would be your recommendations to a young man to stay on his own path and become a man with his own identity and not succumb to the influences of the society?
All right. So his identity. You have some. Well, there's this. well, you have self-concept, self-identity, self-awareness. Self-awareness, he is aware that he exists as a person. Self-identity, he know who he is in terms of his attributes that he has. Is he tall, dark, handsome, bright, smart? So he holds on to stuff like that. There is societal definition of who you are, you know, that is out there, and you have who you are as a person, and how you see yourself. So he needs to hold on to that and find people who share similar values, um, and find a purpose. Purpose is tied into value, right? And these are integral aspects of who a person is. And values are what guides us and help us to determine the path we take. And we need to hold on to those values and find people who will buttress those values and support us in our decision making or his decision making. And hopefully he can weather the storm coming from societal and, and the culture that is out there. So there's a tussle that he will have to deal with, but if he find that support system, understand who he is in terms of his own self-identity and self-concept, he should hopefully weather the storm. And of course, as I'm pretty sure Kavan would say, with the support of God, um, yes, he should be okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're moving on to our word from our final panelists. And I'll be asking Mr. Allen to just give some words of encouragement for the young men in our society today.
Yeah, yes, thank you for that opportunity. Uh, it's young men, I want you to know that you are valuable and not just valuable, but critical. The standard that you set for a society will determine how high that society goes. That if you find a society, a community, a family with extraordinary young men, you will find an extraordinary group of people. And so I feel like it is our time now to really step up to the plate. And it's not even about so much how educated you are or how rich you are. It's just about you deciding that, man, I'm ready to take responsibility for who I am and what is happening around me. I am amazed that a lot of the negative things that we see in society, how much our young men are involved. That if a group of young men come together and decide this is the way we are going to take things, that's just where the society goes. And so I want to encourage our young men to use that influence, to use that ability to carry society down a road, to use it to better society. And I want to also say that as young men, we need each other. And we need to start to build up groups that support, encourage, uh, pool resources. I feel like that's an opportunity for us. It is easier, it would seem, for women somewhat to build meaningful groups to achieve a goal than our young men. So I want to encourage our young men, let's build groups together. Let's come together to find um, purpose, set goals, hold each other accountable. And finally, I want to say there are a lot of good men out there. So to our young men, find a mentor, man. They don't have to be in your business 24/7. You just need somebody you can bounce questions off. You need somebody that you can look to. I've been blessed to have quite a few in my life. My father, before he died, my Spanish teacher, my basketball coach, um, and multiple different pastors. Find somebody that you just pick them mind, you just look at them, you see how they do it right, man, and allow that to be what you have before you. And my final words is God is with you. and he's depending on you, but he's also giving you the strength to be and to do. And so I just want to declare over our young men that you are extraordinary and will be able to achieve extraordinary things, because that's just what you are, a man.
Thank you. So we'll be closing off now. I would like to thank the Live Well Jamaica team for facilitating the Man Up Jamaica campaign. I'd like to thank Mrs. Angela De Freitas from Choices Caribbean for hosting this Zoom meeting for us, and all of our panelists, Mr. Garth Knight, Renard Anderson, and Caster Cavan Allen. Thank you so much. You guys were very inspirational, and I hope that everyone who joined us tonight could take away something from this amazing and interactive meeting. Thank you everyone who joined for your time, and I hope you all enjoyed the discussion. Thank you. Daniel, do you have anything to add before we leave?
Just to thank everyone for coming, and thank you for our panelists or guests for coming. You guys really imparted something. I can say I learned something today and the different viewpoints. I just want to thank everyone. Thanks. That's it.
So no one is going to leave?
Farewell.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. I really appreciated it. And to Garth and Renard as well. I learned a lot from you guys, and you are what is right in society. We need more men like you guys. Message.
Yes.
Thank you guys for
I
having
really
me.
enjoyed this conversation.
I enjoyed this. It was refreshing. And I will go forward and I still all that I've learned myself and help. Thank you guys for having me. I enjoyed this. It was refreshing for this process.
All right.
Thank you.
We have a guest saying, speakers, you did amazing. Thank you for your time. That's a message for my guest. I think that's the end of our discussion now. Goodbye, everyone.
That end meeting, Julissa.